I found out on a Tuesday. Not even a dramatic one. No thunder in the sky, no storm clouds to match the drop in my stomach. Just the dull buzz of my phone while I was reheating leftover soup. The kind that sticks to the sides of the bowl like it knows it doesn't matter anymore. I shouldn't have clicked the photo. But curiosity is a slow kind of self-harm, isn't it? A gentle pulling at a wound you thought had closed. There she was. My sister, Rachel. Her hand stretched delicately across his chest, fingers splayed like she owned the oxygen between them. The caption was what did it. Or maybe it was the ring. She said yes. But not just any ring. My ring. The one he gave me under the old willow tree by the river 2 years ago. The one I returned to him when I thought I was doing the mature thing, the fair thing, when Rachel cried on the phone about being so alone, and how maybe he was never really mine to keep. I didn't think I'd given her the ring, but apparently I had. We had a family dinner the following weekend. I almost didn't go, but I've learned that staying away doesn't always mean peace. It just gives them space to rewrite the story. So I showed up. In a coat that smelled faintly of storage, eyes rimmed with the kind of makeup you wear like armor. Rachel beamed at me from across the table, like I was a guest in her good fortune. He proposed, she said, like I hadn't seen the post, like we weren't once the kind of sisters who shared beds during thunderstorms and candy at church. Oh, I said, and smiled so softly I tasted blood. She extended her hand dramatically, the ring catching the dining room light just enough to glitter over the mashed potatoes. It still had the tiny chip on the side. The one I noticed the day he gave it to me. The flaw I told him made it real. You remember this? She asked. And that was the moment. The moment my mother turned away to reach for more salad. The moment my father cleared his throat. The moment no one said anything. No one asked me how I felt. No one even blinked. I excused myself before dessert. The bathroom light hummed softly above me. I stared into the mirror, not at my face, but at the way it seemed like a mask now. Familiar, but not mine. Like the ring. I opened my purse and pulled out the necklace I'd worn every day when we were together. A silver chain with a small heart he gave me when we first started dating. I'd held onto it like a secret. I flushed it down the toilet, a quiet rebellion. A funeral no one saw. I didn't go back to the table. I waited until I heard laughter swell. Rachel's voice, high and brittle, bouncing against the dining room walls. She always laughed harder when she wanted the spotlight to stay on her. Thought noise could cover silence. I slipped my coat on in the hallway. My father caught a glimpse of me from the kitchen doorway. He didn't ask where I was going. Drive safe, was all he said. Not why are you leaving, or are you okay? Just a soft dismissal, like a teacher when the bell rings. In the car, the steering wheel was cold. I sat there with my hands in my lap, for longer than I meant to. The porch light flickered behind me. Through the living room window, I could see her showing off the ring again. My mom held her wrist, smiling like she'd won. And maybe she had. Rachel always knew how to become the thing they loved. She cried softer than I did, smiled more, said yes when I said maybe. She wore sweetness like a scent, something artificial and convincing. Meanwhile, I wore silence. But I loved him first, and longer, and honestly. That night I didn't cry. I wish I could say I did, that I let it all out. But instead, I folded my body into bed like laundry. I stared at the ceiling, waiting for the pain to do something dramatic, to scream or burn or rip. But it didn't. It just sat, like a guest overstaying its welcome. I replayed the last night we spoke. He stood in the doorway of my apartment, hands shoved into the pockets of his coat. "I don't know what to do anymore," he said, voice low. I remember thinking, this is what people say before they leave. He didn't cry either. He just asked if I'd be okay. I said I would. Because what else do you say when you're being replaced? The next morning, my mother texted, "Don't make this about you." 10 words. A perfect punch. I stared at it until the screen dimmed. I didn't reply. I went to work. I folded clothes in silence at the boutique, made change with steady hands. Pretended nothing inside me had been stolen. When the girl from the jewelry counter came in on her break, she made small talk while fixing her lip gloss. "Did you see Rachel's ring?" she asked. I said I had. I didn't say it used to be mine. That evening, I took the long way home. Drove past the old willow by the river. It was still there. I parked and walked down the narrow path we used to take together. Me in boots too small, him laughing as I cursed the mud. I stood under that tree again. I let my hand rest against the bark, and I remembered. He said, "I want to spend every autumn with you." He said, "It's always been you." He said, "I don't care what they think." But he gave her the ring, and they gave her their blessing. I left a dried leaf at the base of the tree. A quiet offering. A soft burial. A goodbye he would never notice. I used to think grief was loud, that it came crashing in, like waves over a breaking dam. But this grief, the kind of grief where you're still breathing, still clocking in, still texting back lol when someone sends you a reel. This grief was soft. It lived in the corners, in the tiny hesitations. In the half-second before I answered my phone when I saw my mom's name. I didn't fall apart when he left. I had already spent years being invisible. The ring wasn't the beginning. It was just the final confirmation. There was a Christmas, I think I was 19, where I bought everyone gifts with the money I made from tutoring. It wasn't much. Scarves, candles, a paperback Dad mentioned once in passing. Rachel got a Louis Vuitton clutch from them. I got a re-gifted lotion set still sealed with last year's store tag. I remember standing in the kitchen washing dishes. That night, the scent of vanilla sugar clinging to my wrists, and Mom walked in and said, "I hope you're not jealous." I wasn't. Not yet. Just confused. Confused as to how I kept becoming the afterthought in a story I'd never stopped writing myself into. He came into my life when I was 23, not with grand gestures, just consistency. He remembered how I liked my coffee. Not too sweet. He picked up my favorite socks when mine got holes. He listened, really listened, like every word I said mattered. And when he knelt beneath the willow, it was in the middle of a sentence. No speech, no audience, just a cracked voice and a box, held out with both hands. I thought I was seen. I thought love, this time, would mean safety. But then Rachel started calling him. For help. For advice. For comfort when she and her boyfriend fought. He didn't tell me at first. I found out when she texted him during dinner, and his face froze, just long enough for my chest to go quiet. "It's not like that," he said. I didn't ask what it was like. Because asking would make me look insecure. And I'd been trained, by birthdays forgotten, and apologies I was told I owed, to not be the difficult one. The last night I saw him, Rachel had just left our apartment. She brought him leftover cake and sat on our couch like she belonged there. She laughed too loud. She wore my perfume. When she left, he looked at me and said, "She's been through a lot." I said, "So have I." He didn't answer. And maybe that was the answer. It wasn't just that they gave her the ring. It was that everyone acted like it made sense. Like of course she deserved it more. Like obviously she was the one he should have proposed to in the end. As if I was just the rehearsal. A placeholder. A footnote in my own story. Now, I say less. Smile slower. Stop explaining myself when they ask if I'll be at the wedding. I say, "We'll see." And let the silence wrap itself around their expectations like frost on a window. There's a kind of revenge that doesn't slam doors. It doesn't scream in dining rooms or shatter glass. It doesn't show up with angry letters or Instagram posts. No. The revenge I learned to wield came in the form of absence, of all the things I stopped doing, one by one, until I vanished in plain sight. I stopped replying in the group chat first. Let Rachel be the one to plan Dad's birthday dinner. Let her choose the restaurant I once took him to during one of his layoffs. When no one else noticed, he hadn't left the couch in 3 days. She picked a steakhouse. He doesn't eat red meat anymore. But I said nothing. I stopped baking Mom's favorite lemon cake for Easter. I used to wake up early, flour streaked up my arms, measuring each ingredient like love could be calculated. She'd never say thank you, just cut herself a slice before anyone else arrived. This year, I didn't bring anything. When she asked what happened, I said, I didn't think it mattered. She blinked like I'd spoken a language she didn't know. I stopped asking Rachel how she was. She used to call and monologue for hours, about nails, work, her next vacation with him. I used to nod and hum, offering soft encouragement like a doormat whispers, "Welcome." Now I answer with one-word replies. Sometimes she notices. "Are you mad?" she asked last week. "No," I said, and smiled through the phone. "Just busy. I stopped paying the Netflix subscription. It was under my name for 3 years. I let it auto-renew. I let them use my password like it was public property." Last Thursday, Rachel texted, "Hey, Netflix is not working. Did you change the password?" I stared at the message, feeling nothing. I deleted it. It's not hatred. Not even bitterness. Not really. It's something smaller, quieter. Like walking out of a room you once begged to be seen in. Let them figure out the light switch. I started watering my plants again. The ones I forgot on the balcony when he left. Brittle stems drooping in silent grief. I clipped away the dead things. I whispered apologies. I gave them sun. There's something oddly human about plants. They never beg. They just keep reaching for light. I didn't tell anyone when I moved apartments. I packed my things over 2 weeks, rented a van, and signed a new lease on a building with older walls and thicker windows. No one helped. No one offered. No one even asked why. But I slept better that first night than I had in months. Rachel sent me her wedding invitation in the mail, not handed. Not called, not even messaged, just a pale pink envelope with embossed lettering, and a venue an hour away. No return address, no note inside, just my name in loopy print and the names of the couple, Rachel and Daniel. His name looked smaller now. Or maybe I just saw it more clearly. I left the envelope on my kitchen counter. Didn't touch it for 3 days, then used it as a coaster. The wedding was set for a Saturday, late spring. The kind of day where the air still carries the last chill of winter in its shadow, but the sun insists on warming you anyway. Rachel always loved May, said it felt like a promise. I used to believe her. I didn't RSVP. Not because I wanted to make a scene. I just didn't want to participate in their performance. Because that's what it was. A show. An elaborate rebranding of Betrayal dressed in white. Mom called 3 days before the wedding. Her voice was clipped, like she was holding something back, or maybe just holding herself upright. You got the invite? I did. A pause. She's really hoping you'll be there. I could almost hear the word grace teetering on her tongue. That was always her angle. Forgiveness as performance, peace as proof of maturity. I let the silence stretch. Finally, I said, "You didn't ask if I'm okay." She didn't respond. The morning of the wedding, I woke up at 7, not from nerves, just habit. I stood by my window and watched the light crawl in through the curtains. The world moved quietly, like it hadn't been split open by people I once called home. I made coffee, sat in my pajamas, let the hours pass. At noon, I pulled out the old photo album I'd kept in a storage bin at the back of my closet. One of the few things I didn't leave behind in the move. Page after page of birthdays, Christmas mornings, school recitals. There I was. Always a little to the side, Rachel, front and center. Me, holding the camera, or the coats, or the applause. At 2:30 p.m., I took a walk. Not to clear my head. There wasn't much left to fog. I passed by the florist on 9th Street, the same one we visited together once when we talked about wedding colors. He liked simple things. Greens and whites, wildflowers. Rachel's bouquet, according to her Instagram post, was blush roses and peonies. At 3 p.m., I sat on a bench in the park, the one where he kissed my forehead for the first time. I closed my eyes, let the breeze move through me. And somewhere, just a few miles away, they were probably exchanging vows. He was probably saying words he once promised me. Rachel was probably wearing a dress my mother helped pick out. My father was probably pretending nothing had ever happened. I pulled my phone out, scrolled through my photos until I found the one I almost deleted months ago. Us, by the willow, ring box open, my eyes blurry with tears and wonder. I stared at it for a long time, then deleted it. Not out of anger, not out of heartbreak, but because I didn't need the reminder anymore. He never really gave me the ring. He just let me hold it first. When I got home, there was a voicemail. Rachel. Her voice was thick, not with tears, but with expectation. I noticed you didn't come. I hope you can be happy for us. That's what love is, right? Letting go. I played it twice, then saved it. Not because I wanted to keep it, but because it reminded me of how easy it was for her to rewrite my story. I didn't cry that night. I made pasta. I lit a candle. I watched the moon spill across my new living room floor. There's something sacred about choosing stillness when the world expects your collapse, and I didn't collapse. Not then. Not anymore. People always talk about letting go like it's fire, like you have to burn the memories, erase the past, cut the thread entirely, but I didn't want to burn it. Some things deserve to fade, not explode. Some grief doesn't scream. It just exhales and walks away. A week after the wedding, I opened the small cedar box I'd kept in the back of my linen closet. Inside, the letters. Not many, maybe 6. All written in that loose, slanted way he had when he was tired. A few folded napkins with doodles. One movie stub. From the night he held my hand for the first time without asking. They didn't hurt anymore. That surprised me. I thought touching them would feel like pressing a bruise. But instead, it was like flipping through a journal someone else wrote in my handwriting. I didn't throw them away. I tied them with a ribbon and left them in the bottom drawer of my desk. Not because I wanted to revisit them, but because burying isn't always destruction. Sometimes it's just choosing not to carry it in your pocket anymore. I passed by Mom's house the next day. Her car wasn't there, but the porch lights were on. And the peonies were blooming again. The same ones I planted 3 springs ago when I thought being useful might make me seen. I stared at them for a long time. Then I stepped onto the porch and left the extra house key, the one I'd quietly made copies of for emergencies, under the doormat. Not out of spite, out of peace. They don't need me. And I don't need to be someone's second thought. That night, I opened the donation box I'd been meaning to fill. I added the sweater he used to love, the earrings Rachel always complimented, the white shoes I bought for a wedding I never had. I kept one thing, a notebook. The one I started writing in when things first began to fall apart. Back when I thought journaling would keep me from unraveling. Page after page of doubt, of trying to be enough, of wondering if I was the problem. Now, reading it felt like watching someone else bleed through a fog. But I didn't close it this time. I wrote something new. I'm not a placeholder. I am not a rehearsal. I am not the ashes. I am the match. I left the notebook open on the kitchen counter. Let the night air turn the page. Outside, the city hummed like it didn't know who I used to be. And maybe it didn't matter anymore. It started with a notification. I wasn't even looking at my phone. I'd left it on the kitchen counter while boiling water for tea. A quiet ritual I'd learned to love. But the sound broke the stillness. Just a soft ping. A message request. His my name. After all this time. For a second, I didn't move. The steam from the kettle fogged the window. My reflection looked peaceful. Tired, but intact. I didn't rush to read it. I sat down first. Let my hands warm around the mug. Took a slow breath. Then opened it. I know I have no right to message you. It started like that. Always the disclaimers. But I just wanted to say I'm sorry. He said it hadn't felt right, even as it was happening. He said he thought he was doing what everyone expected, what would keep the peace. He said he saw my face when Rachel showed me the ring, and that he's never been able to forget it. He said he thought I hated him, and then, "You never even said a bad word about us. That made it worse, honestly." I read it once, then again. And somewhere between the lines, I felt a version of myself stir. The one who waited for this. The girl who would have written a paragraph back, explaining, forgiving, hoping. But she didn't live here anymore. I didn't reply. Not because I was angry, but because his apology didn't belong to me anymore. It belonged to the past, to a door I had already closed without slamming. Later that night, I found a photo on Rachel's profile, her in their kitchen, hands over her growing stomach. She was pregnant. The caption said something about blessings, about beginnings. I stared at it for a long moment, not with jealousy, not with longing, just distance. A week passed. Then Mom texted. He messaged me. I didn't know he still had your number. I didn't answer. She followed with, "She's upset. She said you're acting cold." And I finally typed something. "I'm just not performing anymore." No response. That weekend, I bought myself flowers, the kind no one ever thought to give me. Daisies and eucalyptus, and a single soft blue hydrangea. I placed them in a jar by the window. Watched them bend gently toward the sun. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't even healing. It was just space. Space where grief used to live. Space I filled with quiet, chosen things. The sky was overcast the morning I left the city. No dramatic sunrise, no cinematic light breaking through clouds. Just a soft, gray hush, the kind that makes everything feel like it's already forgiven. I packed slowly. One suitcase, a few books, my favorite mug. I left behind the furniture, the dishes I bought when we were supposed to move in together, the rug that Rachel once spilled wine on and never apologized for. I let it all stay, like old wallpaper in a house no longer mine. I didn't tell anyone I was going. No farewell dinner. No dramatic goodbye text in the group chat they forgot to remove me from. Just absence, the kind that echoes longer than noise. I drove with the windows cracked. The air smelled like spring, wet soil, sharp and honest. I passed through towns I'd never heard of, gas stations with hand-painted signs, children playing outside laundromats. No one knew who I was. No one knew what I had lost. And in that, I found something that felt like freedom. I stopped at a small coastal town by accident. Just needed gas. But there was something in the way the sea stretched wide without asking anything of me. I walked along the shore for an hour. Let the wind tangle my hair. Let the silence press against my skin like a balm. There was a thrift bookstore on Main Street. The owner was quiet. Kind eyes. Didn't ask my name. He showed me the poetry shelf, and I bought a used copy of Mary Oliver. The spine was cracked, pages soft from touch. On the back, someone had written in pencil, "You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves." I pressed my thumb against it like a prayer. That night, I stayed in a guest house overlooking the cliffs. I watched the tide roll in, steady and certain. I made tea and sat with the windows open. No music, no phone. No echo of voices that once told me I was too much or not enough. And in the quiet, I realized they didn't break me. They just showed me where not to stand again. Somewhere, Rachel is planning a baby shower. He's probably repainting the nursery. My mother is telling herself I'll come back around eventually. That I'm just being dramatic, that I'll apologize, like always. But I won't. Because I'm not angry anymore. I'm not grieving. I'm not trying to be invited, noticed, or included. I'm just gone. Not out of hate, out of healing. The ring was never mine, but the silence after, that belonged to me, and I filled it, slowly, carefully, with the kind of peace no one ever taught me to ask for.